Hello, everyone. This is Feliz, Executive Director of OneV. OneV is a nonpartisan organization that shares the experiences and stories of American voters. We also offer facts and information about past and upcoming elections so that more Americans can exercise their right to vote across all levels of government. Welcome back to OneV's 2022 State Legislative Election Series. Throughout this election season, OneV is shining a bright light on state level races. Even though most of our attention is normally turned to federal elections, state Senate and House officials hold an enormous amount of power. They have great power around issues that affect the everyday lives of ordinary Americans. State level officials also have a great deal of influence over the fairness of elections, including federal elections. As an organization that is deeply committed to protecting American democracy, at OneV, we believe it's critical to talk about these state level races. That's why today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Patricia Bernard, who is running for the House of Representatives in Michigan, District 55. Dr. Bernard is a retired Army civilian and daughter of a veteran. She is the owner of a semi-trucking company. Her main political priorities include quality, affordable health care, including reproductive health, effective public education, and protecting Michiganders' freedom to vote. Dr. Bernard, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Dr. Bernard, as you know, at OneV, we love to tell stories of candidates. And with you, I would just like to start at the beginning. If you wouldn't mind telling us about where you're from, your upbringing, and how your personal story really brought you to this moment of running for public office.
Okay, well, I was actually born in Cambridge, England.
Oh.
My father was in the Air Force, so I am a citizen. And so I was raised, I lived up north in northern Michigan. I've been all over the world pretty much, as far as my dad traveling. Currently, I am the single mother of three sons. Was married, went through a divorce, that happens, right? Moved to the Rochester Hills area, which is where I am now. And I've been here for 28 years. I moved to this area, it's an influential area, and I moved here specifically because of the public education, the quality of the schools. I'm also a real estate broker, so I understand the importance of looking for a quality education. And most people, the first thing that they ask when they're looking to buy a home is, well, what are the ratings of the schools? And so in this particular area, the ratings were high. They still maintain a quality education. And so my children were able to receive a quality public education. And at this point, one of my concerns, I would say, is the fact, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but wanting to just make sure we're able to maintain that. So I have three sons. They're all college graduates. They're all doing well. Currently, as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of a semi-truck company. I'm working with women to get them into the industry, but we hire men too. And I did that because working for the Department of Army for 34 years as a logistician, I was able to make sure the soldier got whatever he needed, whether he shot it, drove it, wore it, ate it, that's logistics. And so my son got into the industry. And so after I retired, I decided to support him. And then I came up with my own trucking company. And so that's kind of how I got involved into this. But it's very interesting because we have been able to deliver, especially during the pandemic, essential products such as automobile parts, food and medical supplies to a lot of your top companies, whether it's GM, Ford, Stellantis, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco. And that made me feel really good. A lot of people say, hey, what have you done for the community? I said, well, and I thought about it. I said, oh, we've done quite a bit for the community because we were able to take care of those empty shelves that I'm sure you've witnessed and most people have witnessed. So been able to do that. Also, what else can I say? I'm just, as far as when I start thinking in terms of what's going on in the industry right now, I do know in our area, one of my concerns is the fact that they are looking to take our public funds, and literally put them towards private schools. And I just feel that that's going to erode our public foundation as far as education, and all children, no matter where they are, should have a quality education. So that's one of my number one deals. And I actually was at a board meeting yesterday. I couldn't believe it. There was, man, it was packed. It was so many people there within our community. And it just let me know how polarized we really are. You know, it's very political. We're steadily putting, I say, politics over people instead of people over politics. And that's one of my slogans. But when I hear, you know, the statements that are being made, and having my doctorate in strategic leadership, and I did research on identifying the stressors and coping strategies of women in leadership positions, I understand that every time you make a statement, you should be able to back it up with research. You should be able to back it up with statistics. And we were told we couldn't Google because Google is not authentic. Google is not credible, right? And so what I heard last night at this meeting was a lot of comments that are being made, even about the quality of our schools. And you can look it up, or anybody can, for Rochester Hills, Michigan. We have a very good school system here. So my concern is more just maintaining it, not allowing people such as Betsy DeVos and you know, Mike Pence visited here a couple months ago. And I thought, wow, this state races, as you indicated earlier, are now all of a sudden people are focusing in, and, you know, we're boots on the ground here, right? You know, state representative is, you know, is where the rubber meets the road. And I realized that when they were here and they were at a Lutheran school and they were promoting, along with my opponent, that you can take our public dollars and we'll give you vouchers to send your children wherever you want. I'm like, wow, this is a big issue. And I did witness it last night as I attended, and I sat there and I listened because I believe in listening to both sides. I believe that we need to be educated on all these issues. Stop listening to everything that you hear, even on the media or people's opinions. We need to research, and we need to make sure that we're making the proper decisions. Yeah. I'm also a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and it's not chop, chop, chop. It's a black belt where I was certified to be able to go into a company or organization and study their processes. And in order to study their processes, you have to bring the experts to the table. See, I'm not the expert. The only thing I would be is the facilitator in a situation like that. And that's where bipartisan comes into play, if you really think about it. Right. If we really have people on the left and people on the right, and I tell people a lot of times I'm purple, which means I can see both sides. I'm not going to be pigeonholed into any one particular situation. Then if we really want to make things happen, then we need to bring our experts together, and we need to agree to disagree, but we also need to agree on a solution. Definitely. Okay. And, you know, that takes me into, and if you need me to stop, I will, but I'm kind of, one thing kind of runs into the other, but I also think in terms of gun violence. Okay. And not too far from me in Oxford, Michigan, there was a mass shooting. And so I have some of my colleagues that are running for state rep that are very concerned about what's happening in our schools and our safety. And this is the bottom line. The bottom line is, I believe over 80% of people, and this is something that was stated, whether they're on the right or left side, they want results when it comes to gun reform. Now, that doesn't mean, oh, they're going to take your guns away from you. You know, it's always an extreme statement when people are trying to get you to come to their side. No, I mean, I'm a CPL owner. I believe in, if you want to have a gun, that's fine. But do we need to have an 18-year-old that's able to run up and down the street with an AR-15? No, negative. You know, and I've had people say, oh, well, you work for the Army, and, you know, but they go in as 18 years old, but guess what? They're in a controlled environment. So some of this is just, to me, it's like common sense. Just kind of weigh it out. Do we really need to have 18-year-olds have the opportunity to have an AR-15? You know, so that's my take on that. That's another issue.
Dr. Bernard, if I could interrupt, and this is really great to hear about all of your policy priorities. I want to go back to that in a minute, but coming back to your story, thank you for sharing your personal story and for sharing just all the amazing professional experience that you have. What have you not done? Looking specifically at your decision to run for office, considering all the different things that you've done in your career, why do you feel like public service is the next best thing for you, running for office? Why do you personally feel like this was the next best step in your career?
That's a really good question. Back in March 2022, I received a call from a young lady. She's with Great Lakes Political Academy. I didn't even know anything about who
Mhm,
was calling me, but I just received a call and they had
mhm,
indicated, we understand that you have an interest in running for state representative. And I'm thinking, really? And then they said, well, you know what? Then you come highly recommended. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, flatter me today, right? And
mhm.
so, but then the conversation got real serious. And the young lady mentioned, she says, well, Dr. Bernard, we could really use your story. You know what I mean? And right now you're in a district that we're projecting will probably be a district that, if it's flipped, will allow us to flip the entire state of House Representatives. And I thought, oh, wow.
Mhm,
Now it changed, because one hand I'm thinking, okay, I'm good, this is kind of hilarious. But when she mentioned that, um, and I do understand, and I'm very concerned that our democracy is currently under attack, period. There's no question about it.
mhm,
And after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, I should say, I watched a lot of news, and again, you look at one and you look at the other and you try to come up with what's really going on, right?
mhm,
And so I am very concerned about the misinformation, the disinformation,
mhm,
the disloyalty to our country.
mhm,
I retired as a GS-15, equivalent to a colonel. I've sat in secret meetings
mhm,
and I know what should happen with a secret document. Okay. I
mhm,
also know what can happen if it gets into the wrong hands.
mhm,
So I am very, very concerned about our country.
mhm.
So what I told the young lady when she mentioned to me, I said, she goes, normally you got to ask a woman 7 times to run. Like, really? So, I like stats, right? And I'm thinking, okay, but Dr. Bernard, you don't have much time, because it was the end of March and I had to put my paperwork in by April 19th.
Mhm,
So I
mhm,
said, let me think about it. Let me pray on it. And then I
mhm,
received a call from a gentleman a couple weeks later, and he says, Dr. Bernard, I'm the one who found you. And I said to him,
mhm,
I didn't know I was lost.
mhm,
And then he said, well, my name is Moses. And his name was
mhm.
actually Moses Pratt. And I'm like, why do your name have to be Moses?
Yeah,
Because that was like my answer. You know what I mean? I
right.
plan on it, and I'll say, okay,
Mhm,
I happen to even answer the phone. I don't usually answer the phone if I don't know who's calling. And
mhm.
it was just a moment for me to say, too much is given, much is required.
Yeah. Well,
So
that
I literally,
yeah.
hmm?
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go,
No, I
you
was
know,
I was going to say that usually makes for a really good story when your constituents know that you're doing this for a good reason, and that you're being authentic. Some people, they think about running for office when they're very young, and for it to happen this way, and for you to just feel compelled to be loyal to your country and to just try to do better. I'm sure that's resonating a lot with your constituents. Now there's one thing that you said that really resonated with me, and that is you're feeling like our government is under attack, and you're wanting to do something about that. One of those things that we've been keeping a close eye on at 1V is voting rights. And I know you care, deeply about access to the ballot, and so. One question that I wanted to ask you is, how do you feel like you can help with voting rights as a state official? Should you win, how do you feel like you can help in terms of protecting voting rights?
well, I'm definitely concerned about protecting voting rights. I will say that I am proud to be in the state of Michigan. Our great governor, Gretchen Whitmer, she has done a great job, um, with making sure that we have secure voting, along with Jocelyn Benson, and our great Attorney General, Dana Nessel. They're the dream team. I've watched them. I've listened to them work. They are doing everything they can to make sure that our elections are secure.
Mhm,
But they still, I've watched the issues with um, ballot boxes being moved, and
mhm,
people having to drive a long way in certain states
mhm,
in order to do their ballots. Now they're really scrutinizing to make sure that, before they send you a ballot, that it's you. That I know someone that got called. And so what I'm saying here is it's definite that there's been a strategic plan to stop our people from being able to vote. All right. And so that is taking us way back to where our ancestors fought for voting rights. My biggest concern is that a lot of our communities, not necessarily the community that I'm in, and some people here too, but I'm thinking in terms of, I was given a statistic and, it's approximate, but I believe it's approximately 13-14% of Detroit voted for primary. And I know that's out of maybe approximately 1 million people. That's crazy, right? So how do we fix that? Well, we're going to have some, and it's on us, and we're going to have some type of outreach program, some type of training, because most of the people, when you talk to them, they feel like their vote doesn't count. So they're not voting. Right. And I have 3 sons, and one said to me, "Mom, I don't like politics." He called it politics. That's what our millennials, that's what our younger generation, that's how they feel. How do we reach them? And we have to reach them and teach them and educate them that your vote does count. And there are decisions that are being made that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. Right. So, personally, I would like to get involved in any type of training or whatever type of projects we could put together to promote the awareness, generate awareness of the importance of our people in general voting. It's not just the young ones, it's a lot of the older ones too. I believe a lot of people are asleep, and we need to shake them up and wake them up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, there's certainly certain things that legislators can do to make voting easier or to, undo any voter suppression. But on the other side, to your point, there's also a lot of education that needs to happen to the voters. As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, state races historically do not get the attention that, presidential contests get, U.S. House and U.S. Senate elections get. How do you communicate about state level races to your constituents so that they can get more enthusiastic about those elections?
Well, I just think we're going to have to use social media. A lot is done now on social media through your websites, through your Facebook, through Twitter, through TikTok. I'm trying to get involved in that a little bit, but social media plays a real big part now, because a lot of people are looking at social media more so than they do the TV, the news now. So definitely working with those platforms. I'm looking to actually do Zoom meetings where, I can introduce to people even the definition of a state representative, and as far as the legislator, what do they do, the levels of government. I think that from a Zoom perspective, you can, promote and get people on in that manner. But we've got to get creative. We've really got to get creative to get that message out. As I, do my fundraising and speeches and that, I mention it. I talk to a lot of friends of mine, and I have friends that are, and it's not about so much education. A lot of times people think, oh, you got to have a PhD. No, that's higher and deeper sometimes, right? Because I find some of the people that even have their doctorates still aren't aware. You understand? So it's about just making sure we're educated in general on the issues and the importance of voting, and then promoting our leadership that we have, our governors and those that are doing the right thing, or we feel that's doing the right thing. I know everything's debatable, right? But overall, you start looking at track records and you start looking at results, and that makes a difference.
Wonderful. One more big question, and then and then a really brief one. Dr. Bernard, earlier, you did a great job of talking about the policy issues that you're most concerned about. You talked about public education. You've talked about voting rights, of course. You talked about gun safety. Thinking specifically about District 55, help us without having to rehash all the stuff you
Right.
shared earlier, but can you help us understand what you feel like are the top, 1 or 2 issues in that district that you're hoping to work on for those citizens of District 55?
Well, one of the things now is just reproductive rights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Roe versus Wade has just occurred within the last, month or so, and it has turned a lot of things upside down. And a lot of the women in my community are very concerned about that. And so I believe that at this point, of course, I'm definitely for women's rights. I don't, how does it become a community conversation? I don't get it. We have people that have said to us, oh, we don't want to take the vaccination. It's our body. We don't want to wear a mask. It's our body. But we're going to make a woman have an abortion. I mean, I'm sorry. We're going to make a woman have a baby, and we don't want her to have an abortion because I guess it's our body and not her body. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I started thinking in terms of it, right after that happened, what was so crazy is when I heard about the 10-year-old that was in Ohio that had to go to Indiana for an abortion. And, my opponent said, well, can a 10-year-old ministrate? That's what I heard. Now, I'm just hearing this, but with what is being said, people might question that. But see, might be an extreme issue or concern or a situation, but there's a lot of other situations that are going to come up. So, and it's not about whether I believe in abortion or whether you believe in abortion. It's about a woman having the choice to regulate her body and her family. And it's between her God, and her family and her doctor, of course. And, a lot of times they're making it sound like they're trying to have abortions, during the last term of the pregnancy. No, no, no. See, that's extreme too. So you have people feeling like they have to choose one or the other. And that just really concerns me. So I'm definitely for women's rights. As I knock doors, that's one of the main things that I'm getting. Of course, they are, want to make sure that we maintain the quality education that we have in the area. And of course, there's concerns about what's being taught in the school, because there's a lot of things that are being stated that this shouldn't happen and that shouldn't happen, as it, relates to a lot of other issues, but they're all seem to be more political than anything. And so we just really need to start putting people over politics.
Right. Well, Dr. Bernard, we really appreciate your insights in terms of the really important issues of District 55. And I hate to cut a really good conversation short. There's just so much rich information here. But before we wrap up and let you go, can you tell us quickly how we can learn more about you, your story, and your candidacy?
Yes, sir. You can go to Dr. DrPat, B as in boy, ERNARD.com. drpatbernard.com is my website. And I'm on all social medias. So if you do that, you'll find out more information about me.
Wonderful. A great story. Again, we're so appreciative, Dr. Bernard. We wish you the best of luck. Looking forward to seeing how things unfold. On behalf of 1V, thank you for sharing your time, for sharing your story, your passion for public service. To all of our supporters and viewers, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our next conversation in our 2022 state legislative election series.
Thank you for having me.